everybody knows who you are. I see you on all the news stations, and everybody knows what's up, and you're the man, so I won't even explain any of it. We'd very much like to hear what you have to say, and we're very grateful for your time. And of course, we'll have tons of questions afterwards, and we'll absolutely respect your hard stop at 2 p.m. So thank you so much. And of course, you know me, the science and engineering nerd. Please, Avi, please, what's the latest and greatest on 3I Atlas?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure. In fact, if you want, we can, I will say a few words about other research that I'm doing and focus on 3I Atlas if that's the subject that is of greatest interest. So let me just see if I can share my screen. I'm looking for the button that allows that. Can you guide me on that? Oh, okay, I found something. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I hope you're able to see, and can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Perfect. So I will just go very briefly on other topics, even though we could have spent a full hour on those, but I will just go very quickly because we want to discuss 3I Atlas. It's a very timely subject. So in general, obviously, we don't know where is the nearest neighbor in our cosmic neighborhood, and we know there are 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and most of them formed before the sun, billions of years before the sun. So it's completely reasonable to search for things like us out there. And when Enrico Fermi asked, where is everybody? He didn't really build a telescope to search. And this is a question that every lonely person asks. What is usually said is extraordinary claim require extraordinary evidence, but extraordinary evidence requires extraordinary funding. You need to dedicate resources, and unfortunately the mainstream of the astronomy community is not doing that. They are obsessed with microbes, and I say we should invest billions of dollars in the search for alien intelligence, because frankly, when we read the news every day on what's happening here on this earth, it's clear that there is room for improvement, that our intelligence is really not the best that you can hope for. And maybe someone from our neighborhood will bring a better sense of intelligence. And so let me skip on the details here and the fact that, I'm involved in the Galileo project, which is searching for unidentified anomalous phenomena in the Earth's atmosphere, following 3 reports that were submitted to the US Congress by the Director of National Intelligence. And we have a number of instruments in every observatory that we have. And we have 3 observatories. The latest one was in Nevada. And I will not get into details. But the main thing that is recently in the news has to do with interstellar objects. And here, there are 4 objects that were discussed in the scientific literature. The most recent is 3I Atlas, discovered on July 1st, 2025. These 4 objects came from outside the solar system, and they have different sizes. It looks like 3I Atlas is the biggest by a large margin. It's at least 10 times bigger than the others, meaning it's at least 1,000 times more massive than the others. And it makes no sense that there will be an object 1,000 times more massive without seeing 1,000 smaller objects before that. We saw only a few before that. And so maybe it's Rama, as discussed in the novel Rendezvous with Rama, the science fiction novel by Arthur C. Clarke, because the dimensions are similar, of all the tens of kilometers in diameter. And there were a number of observations already. I mean, there were 227 observatories around the globe that looked at 3i Atlas. Last week, I analyzed the 4,000 data points from these observatories on the path that 3i Atlas took, and given that it lost mass in the direction of the sun, we see that in the Hubble telescope image here on the right, it's elongated towards the sun, not away from the sun, and it's not fully understood why, but actually we're looking at it almost edge on. We're seeing a jet that is 10 times longer than it is wide towards the sun, and that should have given a recoil to the object, just the momentum conservation. But we don't see a deviation of the trajectory from a path that is sculpted by gravity alone, and that means the object is extremely massive, at least 33 billion tons. This was the limit that I obtained in a paper a week ago based on all the data we have. So it's a very massive object, bigger than 5 kilometers if it's solid density. And there is a plume of gas around it, mostly carbon dioxide. It was observed by the Webb telescope, the Spherex telescope, as you can see here. And the plume goes all the way out to 350,000 kilometers away from the nucleus. It's made 87% out of carbon dioxide and only 4% water, so very different. If people claim that it's a comet, it's very different than comets that we find in the solar system. And you can see the path of this object at the bottom. It's nearly aligned with the ecliptic plane of the planets within 5 degrees. You can see 3i Atlas coming in on the left, and it just came very close to Mars 2 days ago, 29 million kilometers from Mars. And then it will continue on its path and reach a point that is very close to Jupiter on March 16th, 2026. And the question is, what's the chance that it will come along the ecliptic plane to this precision? The answer is 1 in 500. But moreover, it comes very close to Mars and Jupiter. For that, the timing needs to be right, because Mars is going around the sun. And why would it be at the right time at the right place when Mars is close to it? And that requires some fine-tuning of the timing of arrival. Even if you maintain this path, the timing itself is very fine-tuned. And so if you multiply the probability for that timing that it will come close to Mars and Jupiter, and also the probability that it will be in the ecliptic plane, these are two independent probabilities, that you find that it's the chance of it exhibiting this close passage to Mars and Jupiter is less than 1 in a million. Very small probability. So it's unusually rare. And of course, people that claim that it's just a natural comet, they don't explain why it's so aligned with the ecliptic. Why does it come so close to Mars and Jupiter? They just say it's it's a coincidence. We happen to be observing the third interstellar objects detected through telescopes happen to be on a very rare trajectory. Okay, even though the chance is 1 in a million. There are other anomalies of this one, like we see mostly nickel without much iron coming out of it, and that's the way nickel is appearing in nickel alloys that are industrially produced. There is also a very negative polarization that is observed coming from it. And most recently, about a week ago, I realized that it actually arrived from the direction of the WOW signal within 9 degrees. The chance of that, again, at random is 0.6%. So maybe the WOW signal from 1977 was emitted by this object. They were almost from the same direction. So many of these anomalies, are not fully understood. They could be explained perhaps in the future as we understand the nature of the object from a natural origin. That has to do with the composition. It has to do with the the size of the object being so large, perhaps there is an explanation. But one thing, several things that cannot be easily explained, irrespective of how much more data we get, is why is it aligned with the ecliptic plane of the planets? That will never go away. That's puzzling forever. And why does it come so close to Mars and Jupiter? And why is it more or less from the same direction as the WOW signal? These are coincidences that would not be relieved by future data. And 3 months ago, I proposed a scale that is called the Lobe scale now. There are 2 papers on it, which gives a rank of 0 to an object that is completely natural, and a rank of 10 to a technological object that could be a threat, a global threat to Earth, to humanity. And I gave 3I Atlas in recent months a rank of 4 because of these 7 anomalies that it has. But future data may bring it down. It will never go below 2, I would say, because the alignment of its trajectory will never go away, and the timing of its trajectory will never go away. And these are coincidences that cannot be easily ignored. But if we get more data and it looks as if it's technological, then obviously the ranking will go up. If it maneuvers, for example, or emits a radio signal, or we see some artificial lights coming from it, or it looks strange because it came very close to Mars 2 days ago, and there are 7 orbiters around Mars that could have taken data, and we haven't seen it. It was not public yet. The only images we've seen so far, very preliminary, are from the Perseverance rover. So there are 7 different orbiters. One from NASA, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, that has a camera called HiRISE that can take an image with a pixel resolution of 30 kilometers. So we will know much more from that image because the brightest pixel will constrain the area of 3I Atlas. And then there are several European orbiters that could take a spectrum, an image, and there is one Chinese orbiter and one from the UAE, another orbiter. So altogether 7 of them. And I really look forward to seeing that data when it comes out. It's not public yet. There was a question of whether we should message or intercept 3I Atlas, and that, of course, depends on the details. And one thing I recommended in a paper a month ago that was already published is that we use the Juno spacecraft near Jupiter to observe it. It could have almost intercepted it if it had all the fuel that it started with, but because it's used most of the fuel, it could only get a little closer than it currently is. But at any event, Representative Luna called me on the phone for an update about 3I Atlas, and I mentioned this paper to her, and she wrote a letter, official letter from the U.S. Congress to the interim administrator of NASA, Sean Duffy, that you can see on the left here, that encouraged NASA to use the Juno mission. And as far as I know, they didn't plunge it into Jupiter. It was supposed to die in September, a month ago. So I hope they will keep using it to observe 3I Atlas. So obviously there is the fundamental question of what should humanity do the day after an interstellar object is recognized as technological, alien technology. And so I came out in an essay a month ago. I came up with 15 principles. Just to summarize them briefly, obviously this is a concern for all humans on Earth because we are all in the same boat, and so there should be an international organization that. And in fact, I submitted an official letter with a white paper to the United Nations last week, suggesting that there will be an international committee that evaluates interstellar objects and whether they're a risk. Because they could, even if they look innocent, they could potentially appear like a Trojan horse or a black swan event where probability is small that they are technological, but then the implications are huge. And so it's well known within the intelligence agencies that when dealing with a low probability event, you really need to have a contingency plan because you don't want to be surprised. The big failure of the intelligence in Israel during October 7th was a result of them not considering a low probability event, not taking it seriously. And we all saw the consequences, the devastating consequences from that. So at any event, there should be an organization, international organization, that considers the data we have on future interstellar objects. There will be one new one every few months discovered by the Rubin Observatory in Chile. And so over the next decade, there could be maybe 50 of them. And we should study them and decide whether all of them are rocks or maybe one of them or more are technological in origin. And this is a serious matter. And of course, the politicians or the financial markets will not respond to this threat seriously until we have the first encounter. Humans are known for being always late to the first surprise. And so that's okay, but once we have the first encounter, it will become a major item. And I think we could imagine even trillions of dollars allocated to an array of interceptors and probes that will alert Earth to incoming threats after the first encounter. And of course, there was the previous interstellar object that looked weird, and that was Oumuamua, and it was its brightness changed by a factor of 10 as it was tumbling. It had a shape that is most likely flat, and it was pushed away from the sun by some mysterious force without showing any cometary evaporation. And I suggested it's not a comet, but the comet experts argued, well, it has an invisible cometary tail, which is a crazy idea. And believe it or not, the crazy idea is embraced by the mainstream of comet experts rather than them considering a new idea. So they would rather stick to something that makes no sense, which is an invisible cometary tail, like the Emperor has clothes that are invisible in the Hans Christian Andersen's tail. And so it just shows you the mindset of those comets, and many of them are attacking me personally just by suggesting something different. And I'm not trying to solve their psychological problems. I think it's something that their therapists should deal with, not me. Because we know that we produce the space trash, and not everything in the sky, therefore, is rocks. We know that. So the next Copernican revolution would be that we are not alone. And I will mention just in a few words an expedition that I took a couple of years ago, and it was documented by Netflix filming crew, and you will see the Netflix documentary in 2026 coming out. This was another interstellar object that collided with Earth in 2014 and was confirmed by the US Space Command as being interstellar at the 99.999% confidence. And so I led an expedition to go to the Pacific Ocean to search for the materials, and we recovered some materials and brought them back to the laboratory of my colleague Stein Jacobson at Harvard. And since then, we found that 10% of the materials had a chemical composition that is different from solar system materials. And these were molten droplets that we found on the ocean floor that is about a mile deep down there. And so we are hoping to do another expedition to find bigger pieces of this meteor, but it would cost $6.5 million. And we don't have a donor as of yet to support it, so we're waiting for that. The next year will be very exciting because aside from the new observatories of the Galileo project, you can find a few million objects in the sky over the coming year. We will search, of course, for unidentified anomalous phenomena out of these few millions. Aside from that, there is the Rubin Observatory in Chile that was just inaugurated and has a camera of 3.2 gigapixels, and it could find the UAPs as well as interstellar objects. So I very much look forward to the coming year with plenty of data from both the Rubin Observatory and the Galileo observatories. So that is it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, especially about 3i Atlas. Let me just see if I can now stop sharing. Okay, great.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Avi. If anybody would like to come up, we're over here at broadcast headquarters, and we'll also take some questions in our online chat. If anybody has any, feel free to come on up. But in the meantime, I do sincerely thank you very much, Avi. That was very cool, and this is the latest and greatest. Sanity check on my end, Avi. Some people, for example, the angry astronaut, I'm sure you know him. We all love him. He's very angry, and he suggested that yes, he's great. God bless him over in Australia.
Hey, by the way, he might be angry, but is he an astronaut?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm speechless on that. But and I invited him for an angry comment. I'll have to check later. But he did say, I think he touched on you possibly mentioning it, and he mentioned it. Could 3i Atlas in any way be some sort of spacecraft that on the outside it's a meteor or a rock or something, because it has this bizarre green light emanating from it? Would that be outrageous and sci-fi, or is it possible?
I mean, that's definitely a possibility, because we all know about the story on the city, about the city of Troy, that accepted a gift that looked like a wooden horse, and obviously, that was an existential threat. That was the Trojan horse, and definitely that is possible, that some alien gadget is masquerading itself with an appearance that looks like a comet or a rock. And the way to figure it out is to see some excess heat coming from it, some unusual maneuver, artificial lights, a radio signal. There are many ways by which we can figure it out. And until we find those signatures, we should assume that if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. So I'm suggesting using all the instruments at our disposal to search for anomalies. But if they are not there, it's probably a comet.
Okay. Will, did you have a question for Dr.? Yeah, come on up, and yeah, feel free. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Lobe. My name is William Underwood. It is so great to meet you, and big fan, obviously, yes. I was wondering, as 3i Atlas gets closer towards its nearest pass by of Earth again, back without anything interfering in between it, wouldn't that be around around December, right?
Yeah, so actually, I mentioned that it comes close to Mars and Jupiter. Mars 2 days ago on October 3rd, and Jupiter on March 16th. In the case of Jupiter, it's 54 million kilometers. In the case of Mars, it's 29 million kilometers. Now, relative to Earth, it seems like it's avoiding us, because during the month of October, it comes closest to the sun on October 29th. And the Earth is exactly on the opposite side of the sun. So the sun is between us and the 3i Atlas. When you look at the sky during the daytime, during the month of October, just imagine that 3I Atlas is flying behind it, okay? And maybe it was intentional, maybe not, we don't know. If it's natural, it must be a coincidence. If it was designed by some intelligence, then perhaps there is a reason for that. But we cannot reach it with any of our rockets because it moves the opposite direction of the motion of the Earth around the sun. So therefore, in the month of October, it will be roughly 2.3 times farther from us than the sun is, okay, because it's on the other side. And then in December, we come out of our trajectory and it continues along its path. So even though it's not close to the sun, it will get closest to Earth when we come to the other side of our trajectory around the sun. And that will be in the middle of December. Yeah, so it will not be close to Earth at any part of its trajectory as long as it follows this gravitational trajectory. Now, if it decides to maneuver, if it's technological, then obviously it can get very close to Earth, or it can send a mini probe, if it's a mothership. So we should watch the sky in the coming months. And I told the Galileo Project research team to check if there is any unusual activity near Earth, as a result of something that it released, because it's moving in a retrograde trajectory that is opposite to the motion of the planets around the sun. So that is ideal for actually sending probes that would collide with the planets, not need to chase them, as they move around the sun. And so we just need to watch it, keep our eyes on the ball, and if it turns out to be a comet, then we learn something new about unusual comets, because it's very big. It's made of materials different from any comet we have seen. It had this jet pointed towards the sun, not clear where it came from. So it is anomalous, definitely. But maybe we're just lucky. And it's ideal for us to observe it because it came along the ecliptic plane. So there are lots of telescope space assets, spacecraft that are in the plane of the planets, because we went to visit those planets like Mars and Jupiter, and so they can observe it. So that's a gift. We should count our blessings, even if we don't know why they were provided to us, even if we, whether it's natural or some artificial origin, we should just take advantage of those blessings and observe it. And so let's see what the data shows.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Would someone else like to come up and ask Dr. Avi Lobe anything?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Avi Lobe. So my name is Alyssa, and you've been really inspirational to me, especially lately with your comments on your feeling of if this was, something technologically made, and the pull together that we could possibly do as a society, instead of doing a lot of our focus on conflict and putting our money into those places. And the idea that there could be a cosmic neighbor out there who could maybe even help us, bring us together. I mean, I could go on and on. It brings me back to like the theories on, the things that go on in Egypt and everything. But I have kind of a crazy question for you. So with the timing of the government shutdown and the news kind of coming out slowly with everything from these cameras, and I was kind of wondering if Trump or like the government had really any knowledge upcoming about 3I Atlas that would have maybe like had something to do with their decision to the government shutdown, and if there is like the possibility of the Galactic Federation. I know that was brought up to Trump and he spoke about it in 2020. So yeah, I know it's kind of a wild theory, but
yeah. Well, first, thank you so much. Every day or two, I put an essay on medium.com, and I'm not charging anything. You can subscribe for free, and I insist on making it free. I see it as a work of love, so anyone can read it. There is no paywall. So Avi Lobe at medium.com. Now, with respect to the shutdown, I tend to believe that it's not a result of extraterrestrial intelligence. I think it's a result of terrestrial stupidity in Washington, D.C., that the politicians, are shutting down the government for no good reason. It just causes pain, and it's just playing games, and so I don't think it's sort of related. But I should say that on Thursday night, I was interviewed on Newsmax and about 3I Atlas, and that was with Rob Fernetti, and that interview was followed by an interview of the Deputy Chief of Staff at the White House, and you can find it in an essay that I wrote on Friday. The links for these two, and so he was asked whether Trump was actually briefed on 3I Atlas and the research that I'm doing, and he said there is no reason to worry about it. That was the response of so I'm not sure how much is how much attention the White House has to this matter, and but I hope someone is briefing them. I'm keeping in touch with members of Congress and letting them know the latest. And so the bottom line is, I don't think the shutdown is likely to be a result of this appearance of 3I Atlas, and it's possible that now, after these interviews, that in fact there is indeed some awareness over there in the White House, and so that's all I can say as of now.
Thank you so much.
Would someone else like to ask Dr. Avi Lobe a question?
I'm trying to cook up a question.
Okay. That's
Actually,
sure.
one
Go
quick
ahead.
thing I did see last night. I'm not sure that it's accurate, but there's an image that's been floating around on Reddit of 3I Atlas, and it's showing it in an oblong, like cigar type shape. It's really floating around. What have you seen this image? What's your take on it? It's seeming like people are seeing like a perfectly green, equal size, like rod shape, and it's not really showing a tail. I'm not sure if you've seen that one.
Yeah, this is an excellent question, and I was asked about it actually also from the U.S. Congress, and I don't know exactly the exposure time. This is an image from the Perseverance rover. That's the claim, and I don't know it from primary sources. That's what the people who showed the image claim. But if it's real, it could always be fabricated because nowadays there are AI tools that can generate artificial images. If it's real, this elongation could be just the result of smearing by the exposure time of the camera on the Perseverance rover. So an object that would be like a spherical or so in its appearance would be, or even point-like, would be stretched to look like a cylinder, because you integrate over time, and so as the object is moving across the Martian sky, it looks like a cylinder rather than a point. So that if I saw such an elongated feature, that would be my first guess, because you have to ask how long was the integration time, the exposure time, and then could it this elongated image be just the result of that? And of course, the shorter the exposure time is, the less elongation you should get. So that's how you can distinguish quite easily between a really a real cylinder in the sky that should not change its size depending on the exposure time. Okay, so this is an easy thing to check, because you can also look at the images of neighboring stars. That's even easier. And if the images of the stars near the object are also elongated by the same amount, then you know that it's not nothing to do with the cylindrical shape of the object, because the stars are not supposed to be cylindrical. And so that's a very easy thing. So unfortunately, they show the image without looking, without showing nearby stars. In an essay that I posted on Saturday, yesterday, I actually showed an image from the Mastcam Z camera on the Perseverance rover. It showed some smudge of 3I Atlas, didn't show any elongation. So I just want to see where this image that was distributed around over the past day, where did it come from, how long was the exposure, and so forth. And this is actually the essay where I talk about Stephen Miller in this separate news segment that spoke, that was asked about whether the US president was briefed about 3A Atlas after I appeared with on this program of Newsmax.
Thank you. And just lastly, if I could ask, I think today I did notice that you had maybe upgraded the Lobe scale for 3I Atlas from a 2 to a 4. Am I accurate with that, or has it been?
Sorry, I had what?
Was the Lobe scale upgraded for 3I Atlas from 2 to 4 recently?
No, I was always at 4.
I
haven't changed it because I'm waiting for the data to be collected by the orbiters around Mars. That would be the most definitive data about the size of the object and whether it looks anomalous. So I'm really waiting for the month of October before I will change my ranking.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Excellent questions.
Thank you.
Wonderful questions. And folks, I would like to say from a personal experience that Avi, or Dr. Avi Lobe, however you like to call him, is very, very kind and approachable. So please feel free. Any questions at all if you want. He's not going to laugh at you. If he hasn't laughed at me, he's not going to laugh at you. So all right.
I also wanted to put on the chat the link to my essays on medium.com, so you can check it on the chat. Just click on that and you can actually subscribe and receive those updates by email. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Lobe. My question is a little vague. I was just thinking, with the thousands or hundreds up to thousands of discoveries of extraterrestrial, whatever you want to call them, crafts, there's a lot of speculation of it's a duck. Obviously, this is something of higher intelligence, or, let's collect the data. Let's take a look to see where we can pinpoint this as.
Oops, we lost the sound. Can you repeat the last part of your question? We lost the sound for some reason.
Yeah. I'll sum it up. When we take a look at these crafts that are moving through space, is always a speculation that these could be like type 3 civilizations or type 2. Mm-hmm. What do you say to anyone who's apprehensive of us going out to collect data that maybe we would get a negative response from whatever's out there?
Yeah, so in terms of the type of civilization, that really depends on the size of the object that is of technological origin from interstellar space. So for example, the 3I Atlas, if it has a mass more than 33 billion tons, just to get it up to speed of 60 kilometers per second that is observed there, it requires a huge amount of energy. You need a very significant engine to power it and also to maintain activities inside such a huge spacecraft. So that would require something, that is a different class of technological advancement than humanity, definitely type 2 or something. So my recommendation is not to assume anything, just to see what comes our way and then decide. Once we have enough data to make it clear, to everyone that there is no doubt that the object we're looking at is technological, then we can ask, okay, what are the implications as to the senders? What does it mean about their abilities and the fact that they reached us before we reached them, and they have used an engine with a power that is so much greater than anything we can imagine. The biggest rocket that we launched was roughly less than 100 meters in size. So here we're talking about 10 kilometers. It's the difference between a football field and the size of Manhattan Island. It's quite a different size object, and so it's quite possible that that those that reach us are far more advanced than we are, and we can learn from them. But first, we have to clearly detect them, and for that we need scientific quality data from instruments, not eyewitness testimonies. I mean, these are intriguing, but we cannot rely on them because sometimes people are wrong. They have wishful thinking. They mistake something natural for something that looks artificial, and so that's what I'm trying to do with the Galileo project, to get the scientific quality data. And if the US government has such data, I would love to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, hopefully it paints a big picture.
Yes, we'll see what comes up.
Okay, great. All right, Seth, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Lobe. Thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it. I just have a question. I was wondering if you could help me out. I'm really excited to have world's leading scientists and academics like yourself taking this topic seriously. Whenever I try to talk to my closest friends or family about NHI or UFO, UAP visiting Earth, I'm always met with it's impossible because you cannot go faster than the speed of light.
You don't need to. You don't need to go faster than light. They are completely wrong. So here are the numbers. You can tell them. The universe existed for 13.8 billion years. Okay, the sun formed in the last 1/3 of cosmic history. The sun formed, 4.6 billion years ago. That's 1/3 of cosmic history. Exactly 1/3. So most of the stars that we find in the universe formed billions of years before the sun. Okay. Now, how much time does it take for a spacecraft like Voyager? Our own technology from the 1970s. So tell your family, friends, and members. We all know about Voyager. It was in the 70s, old technology, nothing really fancy, nothing in the future, just the thing that we launched in the 70s. Okay, that would take. Voyager will eventually exit the solar system, and it will arrive at the opposite side of the Milky Way galaxy in less than 1 billion years. Okay, so it will be opposite to the sun on the other side of the galactic disk in 1 billion years. So if the difference in age between stars like the sun, most of them formed several billion years before the sun, there was plenty of time for a Voyager-like spacecraft to make it to our backyard. I don't understand what they're talking about, because just imagine us in 1 billion years. So the point is that they already went through what we are going through, possibly billions of years ago. And for them to reach us is trivial in 1 billion years. So, I mean, they may not be around. They might be dead by now. But the fact that we can detect their technological products, just like searching, for relics or artifacts from ancient civilizations on Earth. You just do archaeology, and you find evidence for civilizations that existed before the present time. That's what we do in archaeology. There is a whole profession of archaeologists looking for such relics. So why would we not do archaeology of the Milky Way galaxy in the same way, looking for relics of other civilizations that existed before us? It's exactly the same logic. Whoever is telling you otherwise, it makes no sense.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Oh yeah, we've got time. Very good.
Hello, Dr. Lobe. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
I have
you.
a question. Two questions. If you could send two musicians to space that are not classical composers and two works of fiction, just jut them out to space so our compatriots out there could hear our music or the works of literature, what would you personally choose?
Well, frankly, I would not put anything. There was this golden record that was sent with Voyager and was supposed to pride in the best accomplishments in the arts and history of humanity. So they put on a plaque. I mean, that was a committee that was led by Carl Sagan, that decided what to put there. And frankly, I'm not very proud of music of the 60s. I'm not necessarily a big fan of the Beatles. And well, no,
Hendrix.
because I like music, always the music of today. I really enjoy music that I hear today more than the past. That's just my personal take. But my point in general is that we shouldn't be so proud of what we produce so far, because we are really at the beginning of our science and technology. We only had science and technology for 1 century. And whoever is likely to see what we are, what we produced, could have, science and technology for 1 million years or 1 billion years. And just think about us, where will we be in 1 million years? What we have accomplished so far is really nothing. And, it's just like, ants in the crack of a pavement. They can be very proud of the castle that they built, the ants. But when a biker passes by, the biker doesn't give a damn about their pride. This is completely irrelevant. And so what we are most proud of, I think, will become completely irrelevant as we make progress and become more and more advanced. And the same must be true for them. They don't care about, for them, we look very close to animals. If they progressed over millions of years beyond the science and technology that we have. So I won't try to brag at all. In a blind date, my advice is, instead of bragging, you better listen to the other side. This is my advice for a blind date. Instead of being showing off, let's just listen to the other side and see how far they got. And once we know that, we can assess whether it makes sense for us to or we should learn from them. That would be much better to learn from them than to brag or show off about our music or literature. That's my 2 cents about blind dates.
Thank you very much. And one more question. Do you think the philosophy that like humanity has been able to construct, something like Hegel's philosophy, something like Marxist theories, do you think all civilizations, whether they're from space or from here, from wherever, do you think those kind of aspects of it would be humanity, but those aspects of thought, do you think they will permeate throughout all different kinds of, do they hold true for all living material, or do?
Yeah, that's a very deep question, and I think it depends on how their brains are structured. So some people suggest that maybe science is universal, that they would have the same scientific principles that they discovered, and therefore we can converse with them about. But it really depends, so the size of our brain was limited by how much power our body can give to our brain. It's using 20% of the metabolic energy consumption of the human body. 20% is our brain from the entire body. And therefore the brain, by the way, it's not a lot. It's just 20 watts. If you think about the small light bulb, it's just 20 watts. That's all that our brain is using, compared to the gigawatts that the artificial intelligence, AI systems are using. Just think about it. It's amazing that the human brain can accomplish so much with 20 watts. But nevertheless, it couldn't grow bigger because the body would not be able to support it. That's the biggest it could go, roughly speaking. 1/5 of the power is going to the brain. So now maybe they have bigger bodies, maybe they have bigger brains. And in that case, the way they think is very different than we are. So it's very hard for us to imagine what someone with a higher intelligence is thinking, and how that kind of a brain is capable of interpreting the world, and writing and coming up with theories. And so, one possibility is that if you look at human history, we are making a lot of mistakes and we keep failing, and maybe it's because we're not smart enough, and there is a solution for how to organize people in a better way, but we haven't figured it out because we are not smart enough. Just look at a group of chimpanzees in the jungle. They don't organize themselves in the most effective way because we do it better, the humans, because we are more intelligent. So going by this principle, if there is something more intelligent than us, perhaps they figured out a better way to organize themselves, better than Marx, better than all the theories that we have. And the same is true about science. They figured out, things that we don't even imagine. So that's why I'm saying let's just be open-minded and learn from them if they show up. And this will teach us modesty. We are quite arrogant. There are lots of people that say that we are the most intelligent things and there is nothing else out there and we're probably alone. And I think we deserve some sense of modesty, and that may come from a more intelligent student in our class.
Thank you very much.
So Avi, would you please have time for one more question?
One more question. Yeah, then I need to go to a podcast interview after that. So just one more question.
Okay, and again, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, big fan. So I just had a quick question. So the Angry Astronaut put out like a video talking about how there might have been like some interstellar probe or whatever, just because of the way the spheroids or whatever formed in the ocean when it impacted. But about 14 minutes into the video, he's discussing how both 3I Atlas and this interstellar object came from roughly the same spot, where 3I Atlas was like Sagittarius, and the other one was around the star Vega. And I'm just curious if there's any relevance to that spot in the sky at all, if there's ever been like anything brought to your attention from maybe the area of the Vega star or the Sagittarius constellation, with relevance to like interstellar objects like this, especially like impacting the Earth or green in color or anomalous things. That's all.
Yeah. So an important point to make about that is that in any direction on the sky, there could be a lot of stars along that direction, because there are 100 billions of them in the Milky Way galaxy. So if you just pick a direction, you can pass through very close to many stars, and not just Vega. So we don't know the specific star that it could have come from, any of the objects could have come from. But what we can ask is whether any two objects originate from the same direction in the sky. That's something we can ask. And I looked into that, and it doesn't look like the other interstellar objects came from the same direction of 3I Atlas. There may be some other objects that we will see in the future or that we missed that came from that direction. The only coincidence I noticed was the WOW signal, the radio signal from 1977, which surprisingly came from within 9 degrees of that direction. And it's either a signature of some transmitter on 3I Atlas or some other source that communicate with 3I Atlas, or something that by chance happened to be in the same direction. This is the only radio signal that was claimed to be definitely extraterrestrial without a good explanation. And so since 1977, there may have been more signals, there may have been more interstellar objects, we don't know. So I'm trying to bring awareness into the radio community to be aware of those possibilities, and just look if there is any radio emission from any of the interstellar objects we'll find in the future. Also check, there was no report from 3I Atlas. It's always work in progress, but we need to find some clinging evidence that will convince beyond any doubt that we're dealing with some technological device, and that's what I'm after.